Well, thank you, Sanjeev, for joining me once again here at Summit. We're about to kick off day one with our entrepreneurs here in the office. Looking forward to day two tomorrow. A lot has happened since we last had this convening, so would first love to just hear from you. What have been some of the biggest happenings since we got this group back together?
I think the theme of the transition from the era of moderation to the era of volatility has never been stronger than the last 12 months. I think we're at an all-time high in the number of conflicts globally since the Cold War. The public markets continue to disrupt. AI has moved a lot of capital flows. The private markets have been extremely challenged. Lack of exits across asset classes has made a lot of risk capital very difficult to access, and our entrepreneurs and us are living through that every day. And then I think the planet is giving us some feedback loops. We crossed 8 billion people in the last 12 months. And I think the thermodynamic bill of more food needs, more electron needs, more energy needs is just starting to show up. And we've had 3.2 million climate migrants today. 40% of our land globally is degraded today. So this is not a 2030 problem or a 2050 problem. The feedback loop of environmental physics and human economic behavior is happening today. And I think we wanted to reflect on that. I think we reflect at Summit every year the challenges and the opportunities and kind of provide, hopefully, great networking and fresh perspectives about this journey that we've been on for 10 years. And I'm excited about day two tomorrow.
The theme this year is financing the transition from innovation to scale. Why did you pick that theme?
It's obviously very much a mainstream topic, the transition. I think we wanted to reframe what transition meant. It's actually not about money. It's not even about just capital markets. We have to, I think, define the transition a little bit differently. Last year, we tried to do it with sort of the anthropology of the last 300 years of productivity, and then learn from other productivity curves, whether it was, the railroad, electricity, oil and polymers, or computing, and what the formula was in terms of how those transitions occurred. I think this year we want to step back even more and kind of architect the last 10,000 years of human economic activity and how we've transitioned to feed people, to power homes, power transportation, and effectively have our basic needs met through the use of natural resources and innovation and the allocation of capital.
One of the things I know you're going to cover in your opening keynote is some of the ingredients that are really necessary to transition these commodity sectors. Can you give us a sense of what those four are and your perspective on why they're important?
Even stepping back, I think the world is in the middle of four transitions, even before getting to the work we do. It's increasingly digitized. It's increasingly both aging and hitting 10 billion people. It's increasingly geopolitically difficult. And the capital markets are complex. We have massive fiscal debt and deficits. At the same time, we have this historic wealth transfer that's occurring. We think those four things are going to colonize every sector in our economy, those issues. And it's going to be more important than ever to take a systems view of allocating capital and building companies, to both reveal risks that perhaps we hadn't thought about, as well as opportunities that we didn't know. And I think if you just look at the last 10,000 years, we've gone from an prehistoric to agricultural to industry to sort of 20th century, largely hydrocarbon-driven ways to feed our people, power our homes, and move people and goods around the world. And the 21st century, though, for a planet of 10 billion people, we're going to need 1.7 Earths of thermodynamic demand. In terms of calories, electron, energy density, that's a lot of resource. In order to do that, we think it takes four ingredients to finance this transition. Innovation, business motivation being amongst the first. And we've done this before. When steam engines were invented, they colonized shipping, and shipping went from sail to steam in 7 years. The shale revolution was a long time in the making, but it quickly not just impacted natural gas, but impacted the future of the coal industry in the US and many other markets. And I think that innovation and business motivation will continue to be really critical. But also, I think it needs to build a community of consumers and policy. And I think that storytelling is really important if you're trying to develop a fund or you're trying to allocate capital and build a company. Consumers and policymakers are going to have an important role in this transition. And if you've seen it in agriculture, you've seen this in biofuel, they've driven a lot of changes on farm and in industry. The third ingredient after innovation, business innovation, as well as policy consumer, is I think engaging with incumbents. They own the market share. We fund speedboats, but they're the tanker ships. They have credibility, balance sheet, operating expertise. And so how do you work with them to increase the speed and scale of this transition? Finally, the fourth ingredient is in changing capital markets so that they can finance and scale proven solutions. And I think those four ingredients, we've done it in history before. And going back from the transition from agriculture to mechanized industry to the 20th century transitions that we're going through in terms of both hydrocarbons and computing. This 21st century is even more important to have those four because we're living in a more geopolitically complex world. We're living in an aging world. We're living in a world where governments don't have a lot of capital necessarily to invest in this. At the same time, the environmental physics have never made it more urgent to do this transition. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to make it more efficient, more affordable, less volatile, and more resilient to external shocks. That's what I'm excited for our speakers to talk about and for our audience to kind of network and hopefully learn from.
You've and the team have helped curate a really powerful, I would say, ecosystem that's coming together on day two that represent all of the factors and ingredients that you just walked through. What do you hope we all leave with at the end of the day?
So this is our seventh summit. Our first had 50 people. This one has around 450, about 80 to 100 corporates, 70 portfolio companies, and then lots of folks in our ecosystem, capital markets, policy. So I'm really excited about gathering all together and building that ecosystem further. We've tried to curate those four ingredients. We've got great storytellers coming. We've got really experienced capital market professionals coming. We've got obviously the incumbents all there. And then the innovators and the business model innovators, we hope, are there. And we've invited, I think, other folks that can be ancillary to those four ingredients as well coming. I mean, I think every year you kind of hope that there's great interactions and networking, hopefully some commerce done, whether it's investment or revenue or other things. And I also think we learn a lot, with every summit about where the world is going. And a lot of our job is how to predict the future, and it's more how wrong you are than how right you are. And you're less wrong if you have a more inclusive ecosystem of people that agree and don't agree with you in the room. And I think we've tried to curate that.
Wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to a great 2 days. Thanks for taking the time, Sanjeev. Appreciate it.